Daniel, he, him in New Jersey,
Yeah.
wants to ask Forrest what is the best scientific argument against
Hello?
creationism. Hello, Daniel.
You can see why I was excited about this call.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you guys?
Hey,
I'm
Daniel.
awesome, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's pretty nice to talk to you, both you and Dave. It's really nice. I've been following you,
You bet.
both for a while. It's pretty nice.
Well, thank you.
Well, what's your question? Daniel, you there?
Did we lose you?
Uh-oh.
No,
Oh,
no.
sorry.
After all
I
that,
I
Are you-
didn't-
there you go. Hey,
Hey, Daniel, we thought we lost you there.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So you want to know about the best scientific argument against creationism? Forrest, I know this might be tough for you, but if you get in trouble, Forrest, I'll bail you out. Don't worry.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So what is it? What's your thought, Daniel? Go ahead and articulate your question, and then see what Forrest has to say about that.
Oh yeah, the thing, I had a conversation with my dad a while ago. He's a creationist. That this is where my question came from, because when I was trying to explain how evolution worked to him, I had little trouble because he came up with questions about the dating process, and that he said that we have no transitional fossils, and he thought that the Lucy fossil was the most complete fossil we have, and the oldest and most complete, or something like that.
Not even close.
I do not have probably the sufficient knowledge to explain everything well to him, so I would like to come back to him with better information.
Okay.
Yeah. So I could answer this question for several hours, but I'll be succinct. I would just point out the fact that, because obviously there's to say that there are mountains of evidence for evolution is a gross understatement. Like, it is more confirmed than gravity. It's insane how much evidence we have, and the fossil record is a very small part of it. Like, you could throw out every fossil we've ever found, and we still have overwhelming evidence for evolution from several other lines, from embryology, from homology, from genetics is immense. But the most, and also from the direct observations, we can see evolution happening. We can do it in a lab. But what's really important to point out is that, when you get into these discussions and a creationist person wants to point out, like, oh, well, I don't trust the radiometric dating because some creationists did it wrong and it came up with the wrong numbers, and that means it doesn't work, which is what I hear all the time. Or, we don't have any transitional fossils because I decided to never look up what they are because there's bazillions of them, but I haven't seen them, and therefore. Or with Lucy gets attacked all the time because Lucy is one specimen of her one species, but everybody seems to think that she's the only weird ape-looking thing that we found, and therefore we all just assume that we came from Lucy, and that makes no sense either. Rather than picking through every single one of those arguments, and rather than taking the time to educate every single one of those things, I would rather just point out the fact that the best scientific argument against creationism is that there isn't a scientific argument for creationism. It is not a theory. It's just an assertion. And even if you could completely debunk evolution, if you completely proved that radiometric dating doesn't work, that there are no that all these fossils are just weirdly shaped rocks, and that there's no and every single bit of evolution is completely torn to shreds, and we have no idea where we came from, you still have not done a single thing to back up your claims in creationism whatsoever. Because you first have to prove that there's a creator, then you have to prove that that creator can do the things you're saying it does, then you have to prove that it did, you have to run tests on this creator, you have to do there's so much work that goes into science. It isn't just, I think it might be this, let's all say that. And so if you could shred evolution, you still got nothing. And because creationism has nothing. There's no scientific evidence, there's no evidence whatsoever for this creator or for any of the things you claim it did. And like we just talked about a minute ago with this caller problem of evil, if we're going to say that there's a creator, that has a lot of baggage with it. With evolution, death and destruction and random horrific events, those are just the random horrific events that happen in nature. There is nobody behind the wheel, nobody's at the controls, and those things guide the process, and it's not good or bad, it just is. You're telling me there's a sentient conscious being that's making all this happen. That guy's a jerk. So like that, now you have more problems that you have to deal with on top of all of this.
Hey, Daniel,
that would be what I would say.
Daniel, what was you were choppy? It was a family member, I think, was arguing with you about evolution. But what was their primary argument for creation?
Oh,
or did they only have stuff against evolution?
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, there was that skepticism about evolution because he doesn't know how it works. Therefore, creationism is right. He also I had troubles explaining how the dating process works.
Yeah,
because he was wondering how they know the X fossil is millions of years old, how they know the Earth is millions of years old, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was to Forrest. That was to Forrest's point. They don't have an argument for creationism. They just want to argue against evolution. And then therefore say by default, then the Bible must be true.
And that's what we call the either or fallacy. Either this thing is right or that thing is right, and there's nothing in between. It would be like me saying, I have a Christmas present and I didn't buy it, therefore Santa must be real, because those are the only two options. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And on top of all that, it's also really important to point out, this is just an aside, there isn't just one dating method. There are lots of ways that we date things, and we usually do more than 2 or 3 of them in order to compare. There's radiometric dating, but a lot of times people they use the word carbon dating to mean all radiometric dating. Carbon dating only works on some things sometimes. There's other atoms, other forms of radiometric dating. You can do uranium, you can do potassium, you can do all sorts of things. Also, there's like dendrochronological dating where we do tree rings. And also there's biostratigraphic dating where we use the age of the rocks and then we measure like there's the different fossils here. And so these ones definitely came. There's like this whole laws of stratigraphy and laws of superpositioning that tell us how that works. There's fission track dating where we test how atoms decay and they leave little cracks and little marks in crystals, and we can use there's paleomagnetic dating where we can measure the ancient flipping of the Earth's magnetic poles. There's a thermoluminescent dating where we can look at like ancient ceramics that ancient cultures made and get them really hot and see how much light comes out of them due to the heat, and that tells us when they, and so on. There's so many different ways that we can do this.
But Forrest, no. If they contradict the Bible chronologically, then they're wrong and they can't be trusted.
That's what it is.
Well, I hope, Daniel, I would.
It was pretty much
I would recommend looking. There's a lot of.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Daniel.
No, I'm sorry. He just said, I don't believe the Earth is millions of years old, therefore science is wrong. That's kind of reason.
Right.
Well, that's the problem when you're talking to family members who are basing their understanding of science on the Bible, which is not a scientific document by any means. Then that's the point I was making in jest with Forrest, is that when that contradicts the biblical genealogy and the history of that's in the Bible, like the 6,000-year-old history of the Bible, then you got to believe one or the other, and they have trouble. When the day, I remember when I was a Christian, and I would think then these carbon dating must be wrong. How do we know they're accurate? How do we know they can be trusted? How do we know the scientists aren't just making stuff up?
What he was saying.
Yeah. And so that's the only argument they have. And here's the problem: the more that science shows us, because science is moving forward, we're learning more all the time, and as that continues to increase in our understanding of our history. I mean, the pictures they're getting from space now and the origins of the universe, this is going to continue to increase and improve. And the Bible is in more and more trouble because it's going to contradict the biblical narrative more and more and more, and more evidence is going to come forward.
Yeah, no, more metaphors. They say everything's a metaphor when it's proven wrong or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And for thousands of years, people have believed that it was real, but now all of a sudden we all know that it's a metaphor, and it has been the whole time.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's going to continue to move in the favor of what we're saying, and people like my brother who's come at me again, my pastor brother, and trying to debunk evolution and telling me that there's scientific evidence for creation. And I'm holding my breath to see this because I can't imagine what that could be. But
send it over and get your Nobel Prize.
Yeah, let's have a look at this because this is going to be groundbreaking. But anyway, we'll see.
And that's it's one more thing, just really quickly before we let you go, Daniel. That's one really important thing to point out. It's that evolution is the central theory of biology, and it's important to remember what the word theory means. Theory doesn't mean guess. Theory is a functional explanation of observed natural phenomena that's backed by all of the best evidence that we have. So if anybody ever asks you, is evolution a theory, just say, yeah, just like gravity and cells and germs and plate tectonics and the earth going around the sun and all these other theories. Yeah, absolutely. But the whole thing to remember,
they're following you and
yeah, just the most important thing to remember is that, like Theodosius Dosensky said, nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have evolution, biology is just a pile of random facts that make no sense and no difference to one another, and it's just crap you have to memorize. But with evolution, all of these threads weave together into a beautiful tapestry of life, and it all makes sense all of a sudden, and you can very quickly make predictions, and you can run tests, and all of a sudden biology becomes science and not just record keeping, and so it is the central tenet of biology. And without evolution, you don't have medicine, you don't have agriculture, you don't have life working at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good call, Daniel. Good luck with talking to your theist relatives and friends. Just educate yourself as much as you can because the science is on our side, the evidence is on our side.
Since I was raised in an evangelical household, I've been told the universe was 6,000 years old. I've been trying to educate myself as much as possible once I got out of that rabbit hole. So,
that's the best way to do it.
Keep listening
to you, man.
Keep listening to smart people like Forrest. You'll learn a lot.
Oh,
I don't have much to do. I can't help you much, but there are smart people out there. But thanks for the call, Daniel. Appreciate you, man.
Of course, guys. I love you both, and take care of yourself.
Okay, man.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
man. Later. What a nice dude.
Bye.
Yeah, he's just trying to get, educate himself. And
yeah,
I want to tell people, yeah, exactly. And he's coming out of a background that really didn't put much faith in science or learning. You start with the Bible and try to make the answers fit the Bible. And that's ask backwards.
Exactly.
Ask backwards.
Exactly.